Hey everyone, welcome to the first True North webinar of 2020. We're excited to have you. We're going to give everybody just another minute or so and then we'll just jump right in. Appreciate you being here and we're going to get started in just a minute. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. We're excited to have you today. We're going to talk about 401k basics. Those of you that know me know how much I love 401ks and how passionate I am about them. So again, I'm Jake Rushton. This is our True North team here. You can see we've got quite a few great people. A lot of team is ready here to help you. So hopefully these webinars are something that will give you some really good information that you can eventually take home and share with others. That's what we want, is to the point where you feel really comfortable learning and sharing with others. So let's jump in here. And as you have questions, please, oh, looks like someone can't hear. Let me make sure that's working. All right, can anyone else maybe chat if you can hear me? Send me a quick message. Make sure that's working. I tested a little bit earlier and it was working just fine. So. All right, there we go. Okay, sounds like we're good. Okay, let's jump in here. So a little bit of background as far as what we're trying to do here is each quarter we're going to cover a few different things. We're going to have these webinars each month, and each quarter we're going to have the first month of the quarter to be early career, so things that'll help you early on. So today that's what we're doing. We're talking about the 401k and how it fits in. Second month we're going to do mid-career, so kind of working through your different details that might come up as far as taxes, buying a home, those kind of things that mid-career are kind of important. And then the third month will be planning for retirement. So look for these different topics, see how they apply, and make sure you can attend. If not, we'll record these and make sure you can take a look at them as well. So today, the big question we have for everybody is, does the 401k actually work? And I do this a lot as far as trying to explain how the 401k is a valuable asset, a valuable tool, not only to a business owner, but to an employee. And I think the most of the people here today are employees, and so we want to talk about how it can actually be an effective tool in your retirement and in your life and your plan. So I want to take you back, though, and share a little bit about my introduction to the 401k. I was back kind of right before I was heading off to college, 2003. This is some of the things that were going on right then. California elected Arnold Schwarzenegger. Elizabeth Smart was found, and Saddam Hussein, we got him. So this was how long ago I found out about 401k. I found myself in my first full-time job at O.C. Tanner, downtown Salt Lake, and it was the first chance that I had a 401k actually offered to me. And I remember sitting in a room full of people, and this is the only thing they showed me, was a chart of the stock market. We had just gone through a big drop. The early 2000s was a big dot-com bubble. All the values kind of took a big hit. The stock market was in a kind of a tough place right then. And they were trying to convince all of us to contribute to our 401k. Well, for me, I was young and just wanted to get my paycheck and go and spend it and head off to college soon. And I decided not to do it. I was heading off to BYU Hawaii, and so I chose to opt out. I did not do the 401k, and I've regretted it ever since. And here's the reason. The 401k, what I missed out on is ever since then, even through the 2008 and 2009 financial crisis, the S&P 500, it went up an average of 7.6 annualized each year, which is a tremendous amount, which if I had just put $10,000 in that first few months when I was working at O.C. Tanner, it would have grown now to over $32,000. So I missed out on $22,000 and would have just been growing this whole time. And so that's why I tell people the first biggest mistake with your 401k is just not doing it. So if we can get people to pay attention and understand this and start early, I mean, the best time to start is yesterday, so let's get going. So even further back, let's talk about what a 401k is and where it started. Okay, it was actually an accident. It was never really meant to become the industry it has. Back in 1978, Congress actually passed a part of the tax code, the section 401 line K, which would allow executives to put an additional amount of their of their money they've received in their check. During that time, the way that people retired is they had pensions. And so when this change happened, there was a guy by the name of Ted Benna. He's still alive, still doing some things in the 401k world. He basically created the 401k and made it what it is today. And what's interesting about that is he's kind of been frustrated and given some insight to why he thinks it turned into the way it did and some of the concerns he has. One recent quote from him is, "My fear is a lot of people are burying their heads in the sand and they don't even open their statements. Clearly, it's been a sobering time." The 401k is a powerful tool, but it's turned into a game of fees, a game of kind of not much transparency, and it's trying to come back, and we're trying to do our best to help people understand it better and get those fees down and really make it a great resource for employees. But it was never meant to turn into what it did back when Ted kind of created it. So replacing the pension, let's talk about that. So before, kind of a couple generations ago, working for a company your whole career was very common. My grandpa actually did that. He worked for a local concrete company for his whole career, retired with a really great pension, and it worked out really well. Well, those days ended when the 401ks started to come out in the early 80s. And so the reason for that was the liability that was put on to a company for holding a pension was pretty significant. They really didn't know how long people were going to live, so they had to have a liability to pay them their pension through that time. And so when the 401k came out, it removed that liability from the balance sheet and put it onto the employee. And so in a way, from a CFO kind of view or from a risk kind of view, it put companies in a spot where they thought this would be a positive. Unfortunately, what we've noticed is that now that retirement's placed on the employee, there's a lot more people that are not ready to retire. Even if they've worked for 30, 40 years, if they were not taught or didn't have a great company that offered a benefit like a 401k or another way to save for retirement, they're not even planning to retire. And why would that still be a liability on the company? Well, it's not on paper, not on the balance sheet, but having an aging workforce, what we've seen is now if people are sticking around in their 60s and even higher, they're doing it to keep health insurance. And at that time, they're most likely getting paid probably their highest salary. They probably have the most time off. It's a real struggle because they're not super thrilled to be at work, and so the productivity is probably not the best. And the employer has to deal with that. And so every time they go and renew their insurance, it's a significant cost to the company. So in reality, the liability is still there. It's just not in a very clear spot like it was before on the balance sheet. So we're trying to do something about that. We're really excited about the technology that's coming out today that's reducing costs and making the 401k more accessible to smaller companies, and anybody that's has any sort of business can offer a 401k at a really, really reasonable cost that will be significant for their retirement. So today the 401k industry has grown to $6 trillion, and it's over 80 million Americans have 401ks. And I say the biggest issue I find is a lot of people have them kind of just scattered around and haven't kept track of different 401ks as they've changed jobs. That was probably one of the great positives of the 401k, was now your retirement plan was portable, which meant more ability to move different jobs, different careers, go to different companies. Whereas before, if you did that, you would lose your pension benefit, and that's what kind of kept you there as a golden handcuff. So that was a good thing, was the 401k allowed some freedom there. So here's our key objectives today, what I want you to leave with. I want you to be able to understand your plan, knowing where to look and how to find those key pieces of information to make good decisions. I want you to take action if you haven't on a certain amount of things, and then being able to review your plan annually is important. So let's jump into the understanding the actual plan. Okay, these are the main things you need to know. The first being eligibility and entry dates. So when can you get in your 401k? If you're already in, you've passed eligibility. The IRS requires that an employer cannot make you work more than 1 year and 1,000 hours and be eligible. They can't make you work 2 years or anything above that. It has to be anywhere from immediate to 1 year and 1,000 hours. And an update to that that's recent as of the Secure Act that was passed December 20th of last year. If you work for a company 500 hours a year for 3 consecutive years, you are eligible for the 401k. So that's a new item that's passed. So understanding when you're eligible and getting in the plan is important, because if you don't, you may be missing out on this next step, which is the company match or the non-elective contribution. So companies had to find a way to incentivize employees when they made the switch from pensions to contribute, and that's why we have matches in most cases. There's different designs, and when we talk about 401k plan design, there's a lot of specific reasons to why your company would elect certain provisions. Most cases, we see a safe harbor match design, and the reason for that is the safe harbor allows the business owner, so your boss or the owners of your company, to contribute the max amount, which we'll talk about in a second, without any risk on passing testing. Now, the testing is all about protecting your rights. It's protecting your ability to participate just as much as a business owner, even if you're just starting out your career and you're just getting going in your 401k. What we mean by non-elective, so a lot of our 401k plans we help out with are with physician groups. So if you're with a physician group, you may not have a match. You may just get a percentage given to you each year. And there's a reason behind that. It's the design which frees up the owners of the practice to be able to contribute more money, and so you benefit for that way. So the thing that worries me when I see that case is a lot of staff at physician groups, when they have this experience where it's not a match, they don't participate, which is unfortunate because the 401k can really help them save on taxes and put away money for the future. So if you are one of those, we definitely want to encourage you to rethink that and make sure if you're already hitting your IRA maximums, looking at the 401k is another option to put away money. The third thing is vesting. This is important to know how much you get to keep of that match should you leave that company. So the IRS makes this either immediate or up to 6 years. They can't require you to work more than 6 years at a company and not take anything that the employer gave you. So most physician groups, for example, they do it where you do a safe harbor, or if you're with a safe harbor 401k with a match, that's immediately vested. So you're going to get, not only your money is always yours, if you left, you switched jobs, you decided to stop working, whatever it might be, you can take that money that you put in as well as the employer money. So your vesting is really important. So knowing those things are really helpful because each plan is a little bit unique there. Okay, so what do you need to do to take action? First and foremost, decide to do the plan. This is where most people miss out. They just decide not to do it. They don't sign up. They put it off. There's never going to be an easy time to start saving, and life just gets tough. I mean, I have 5 kids. I know how hard it is to keep up with bills and continue to feed everybody. It's expensive, but your 401k, if you can set up to save in your 401k early in your career, you'll benefit. It'll start to grow just like it would have if I did it when I was right before college. And so signing up. The second thing you need to do is make sure you understand between Roth and traditional. Okay, so let's take a second to talk about that. This is probably one of the most common questions when I do a 401k meeting in person is which one should I pick? It's very personal. It depends a lot on how much tax you're paying personally. So understanding the government and how they are actually taxing you is something that I think we don't spend enough time really taking into account and understanding how it works, because it's a tiered system. So as you make more money, you pay more tax on those last dollars you earn. So for example, if you're paying 22%, let's say, yeah, 22% interest, or taxes, that means that if you were to do traditional, you would save, for every $100 you put in, you would save $22 in tax for that $100. The traditional, you will be taxed on the whole account as you withdraw it. But let's say in retirement, you've reached a point where you've paid off your house, you're just basically pulling money out of your accounts to pay for food and other utilities. You're probably going to be in a lower tax bracket, most likely, maybe 10 to 12%. It just depends on how much you're taking out. So you start over because you don't have any pay coming in. So even then, you'll save. You'll have more money working for you over time, and you'll be able to hopefully manufacture or decide where to pull money from, depending on how much you need at that time to keep your taxes low. The Roth is, I think, often thought of as, well, if I'm young, I should do Roth. And that's not really the right answer. The Roth, you pay the tax now. So in that same scenario where you're putting $100 in and you're in a 22% tax bracket, you would still pay the $22 to the government right then. You would put $100 into the 401k. And if that $400, say it grew to $5,000 in retirement, you take the whole thing out tax-free. So the benefit there is if you have time on your side more than anything to have the account grow to a substantial amount that will not be taxed. So if you go out traditional, you're going to be taxed on that growth in the market. So it's very personal, and if it's a question that you have, I would say reach out to us. We can take a look at your tax returns and kind of help you understand where you are and the decision to make that. We've helped some people switch from Roth to traditional, which put away more money for them and still allowed them to keep their same budget because it didn't take as big of a amount out of their check. So if this is you, if you've questioned this, we would love to help you. It's very personal. We want to help you. Know that any money from the company will always be a traditional amount, so you will be taxed on that at retirement when you take it out. Okay? All right. So here's some important numbers I need you to remember. 0%, 0 to 6, 19,500, and 59.5 years. Okay, let's start with number one. The 0%, that's what you get if you don't put money in. If there's a match formula and you put 0 in, you get 0 match. You miss out on it. So if you don't participate and there's a match, you're leaving money on the table, and your employer, the business owner, is probably fine with that. They probably aren't making a big push. It's unfortunate. So take advantage of that. The match is most likely going to be based on 0 to 6% of your pay. And if you do that calculation, say you take 5% of your gross check, it's probably not as big a number as you would have guessed. And so I would encourage you to do that. Make sure you're getting the full match is really the first step in deciding once you've decided to do the 401k. But don't stop there. I think too many people think that the full match is all they can put in. You can put in $19,500 a year. Or if you're over 50, you can do an additional $6,500, which is $26,000 total per year. That's a significant amount more than an IRA, which really will help you, especially those people that I meet that do this early on in life, before they buy a home and have kids and all those things that come up. If they've done this for even just 1 or 2 years, it can really impact their ability to retire and retire on their terms and the things that they want to do, because they'll have that additional amount in there growing. So don't stop. If you can, put more in, because that's what the business owners are doing. That's why they're structuring the plans they are, so that they can do that. So be smart about it. If you can pull it off, obviously you need to pay your bills, and we wouldn't say to continue to hold debt and other things that may be more detrimental to your retirement. So be smart about it, but know that there's a limit above the full company match. Okay, 15.5 years old, that's when the 10% penalty drops off. So when you start to withdraw the money, you want to at least plan on being past that age, and that's important. And most likely you're not going to just say you hit 65, I'm retired, I'm done. You don't necessarily want to take all your money out at that time. You can roll it into an IRA, or you can continue to manage it in your 401k and be smart about your distributions, because the more you take out in a year, the more taxable income that will count as. So don't think that just claiming retirement is when everything just completely comes out and goes into your bank and doesn't earn you any interest. So those are some things I want you to remember. So let's talk about the money. Once you've actually decided to do your 401k, maybe you're already in the 401k, you're putting money in, and you just thought, I'll just let it do whatever it needs to do in the market. I don't really have any interest in learning that. This is what has happened with your money. The first investment option, if you do nothing and you contribute to your 401k, or your employer contributes for you as a non-elective, they're going to take your age, and they're going to find a mutual fund that lines up with the age of 65. Okay? Now, why would they do that? It's a way for us to automatically protect you in somewhat keeping the money you've saved over your career a little bit more conservative as you get closer to that retirement age. So this chart here is there's a lot here, and you can see the pink here is U.S. stocks. The yellow is like international stocks. The blue is investment grade bonds, and this light blue is Treasury inflation protection. So these are government bonds essentially, and then cash. So you can see early in your career, years before you're actually going to retire, you don't see very much, about 10% in the bond market. Why would that be? Well, we'll talk about that in a second, but basically the stock market is going to get you a lot bigger return. It's going to have more risk involved, but you need that risk to get that return over time. Over the next few years, and as you start to get closer to retirement, the transition period starts to happen automatically in these target date funds, where we reduce your stock investment and put it into more bonds to protect what you've saved. And then as you get into retirement, it goes even more down so that you don't have as high risk. For example, if you were about to retire in 2007 and you had stayed in just a 90% stock, 10% bond, you would have a very big reduction in your balance to pull from. And if you'd panicked and made poor decisions, which we'll talk about in a second, you would have made some bad moves. So this is one way that you can be the most hands-off in investing your 401k, because it automatically protects you in a way, not as a guarantee of any way at all, but it will reduce the chance of stock market risk by increasing your bond account. So we'll get deeper into the stocks and bonds and investments as we go through these different webinars. I'm going to stay kind of high level today, but know that whatever you invest in, no matter what, the underlying bottom, when you break it apart and look at everything, it's stock or a bond. You're either owning a piece of a company through a stock, or you're lending money to a company through a bond or the government. There's no other way to invest, whether it's packaged up in an annuity or a whole life policy or a mutual fund. Those are the only two ways that your money can go and work for you, is in stock or a bond. Okay, so if you don't go with the target date fund, you said, I want to dig a little deeper, I want to be a little smarter about this, I'm interested. We have what we call our models. So what those are is a specific allocation. So if you go back to the target dates, this is an allocation, 90% stock, 10% bond. You can essentially stay there in that same allocation without it automatically changing through the use of these models. This is a 90% stock and a 10% bond. Here are the different ticker symbols. So if you were to take these and put them into Google, it will pull up all the information. And inside of these are multiple mutual funds. So these are from Dimensional Fund Advisors, and these are from Vanguard. And these will show you, once you break it down, you'll eventually get to the point where you'll see a company stock, or down here you'll see a company or government bond. And you can see the allocations go a little bit more conservative. Over here is 20% stock and 80% bond. So depending on how you're building your retirement plan with your spouse or your family or whatever you're doing, this can be really important, because you can target or set up your specific 401k balance to work a specific way, either very heavy and aggressive in the stock market, or reduced if you have other risks you're taking and you want to keep this a very safe account and retirement's a couple years away. You may want to back it off and just hold it there. So we've essentially built out these models for you, and we continually review these every single quarter. On a very close basis, we will make sure that if we need to make changes, we will. We have made recent changes to the bond options here. Just because of interest rates, we saw that there was a reason to do that, and we made that change. So we're continually watching these 401ks and know that we're spending a lot of time behind the scenes analyzing and keeping up to date with what's going on, not only with the actual mutual fund companies, but with the government and different regulations. The third level of investment is build it yourself. So we have 26 mutual funds, just like these here. We have 26 of those, and you can go 100% in the market. You can do really anything you want, essentially. We cover all the different asset categories, from large companies, small companies, international companies. You can pick and choose. So you have a lot of flexibility in your 401k to be smart about your decisions, and know that there's no additional cost to you to make those changes. Some of the funds may have a higher cost associated with them, and our next webinar next month is going to dive really deep into how to analyze investment fees and why you need to do that to make your account work better for you. But know that the different investments, when you make changes in your 401k, there's no commission or some kind of ticket charge. You don't have to pay more. This is a chart from JP Morgan. I wanted you to see this because I think the news and on TV, they do a really good job at scaring you. They want ratings. They're really excited about trying to get more people to watch. And when there's bad things happening, people watch more. As you know, there's a lot of stuff going on with the coronavirus and all those sorts of things. And we've been through this before, and it's very scary. But in the market, they do that a lot. I can't tell you if I don't think I've even seen one news story talk about last year the stock market returned almost 30%, depending on if you reinvested your dividends. 30%, right? No one's talking about that. They're talking about all the negatives. So this chart shows you these gray bars are the annual return for that year in the market. This is the S&P 500, so the top US 500 companies. You can see over here in 2008 and 9, this is a huge drop, negative 38. That's the annual return percentage. These red dots, that was the biggest drop it had in a one day during the year. So every single year, there's essentially a really, really negative point. But overall, the long term, it's been significant growth. And here's how you can see that. This is the last, from 1996 to 2000, end of 2019. We are up from the crash of 2008, 378% in the market. So if you had been close to retirement and you went through this crash and just sold everything, went to cash and said, I'm never trusting this again, you missed out on 378%. Now, going forward, you can't ever look at this and say, well, this is what's going to continue to happen. There's been some ups and downs throughout that time period, but overall, even if you got in at the peak of the last crash, you are up over 300%. And that is the mindset you have to have over your 401k's life. You have to think long-term, past that 59-and-a-half-year-old, so that you know that the market will continue to work for you, because even through these huge drops, during this time, hopefully you can flip that mindset around and put more away during that time, because you're going to be buying things that are cheaper and get a higher return. So understanding the market and what it does through the fundamental principles of what actual data is showing versus a news story looking to get you to watch their channel longer is important. So if I can leave you with anything, please don't trust. Don't just sit at home and watch CNBC, because you're probably not getting the full story. They do some great stuff. I'm not saying that's not a good thing to watch and keep educated, but know that they have other motives other than just showing you the plain data. So let's talk a little bit about how your 401k fits into your financial plan, because this is important, because a lot of people do other things and try to chase other dreams and things that sound too good to be true, and most likely they are. So here's what I want you to do. Think about automation. Your 401k really should be the first thing that hits your paycheck. It should come out automatically. You don't even think about it. It's going in there. It's growing. It's on auto pay. It's going in there. The other thing you can start to do is consider an HSA. So if your employer offers a high deductible plan, the HSA is a really great tool. It's actually more powerful than the 401k. Going back to the traditional and Roth options is actually the best of both. It's tax-free in and tax-free out on medical expenses. So there's been studies showing that most Americans will need, for a couple, $250,000 in retirement for your medical expenses. That is a massive number. And if you have that in HSA, that $250,000 would work for you. But if you have that money in your 401k, it's not going to go as far, because if it's traditional, you're going to get taxed even on medical expenses. So you're going to need higher amount than $250,000 to pay for those costs. So really start to think through the HSA as a retirement vehicle if you have one, or if you have the opportunity to get one. I would encourage you to do that and build it up and save it and invest it just like your 401k. The rest of your money, you need to set up an automation so it goes to your checking account, and then you need to start to build out your savings accounts, and obviously you need to pay your bills. So naming your savings account is a critical thing. So I want to touch on this briefly, because your 401k is going to keep growing. And if there's some insane emergency that blows through all the cash you have in your savings account, most 401ks are going to allow you to take a loan that you can get out and pay yourself back. And in some cases that's okay. Don't do it to take a vacation. Don't do it to buy a car. If there's an emergency, know that that money is something that you probably can access. But try to continue to put that away without doing that, because when you do it, it comes out of the market, and so it won't grow, but you're paying yourself interest back. So it's kind of a win and a loss at the same time. So if you can name your savings, that's important. I would definitely look for a way to increase the return number on your cash. So it's important to have that emergency, whether that's a month, 6 months, whatever you feel is comfortable. Once you're past that point and you feel like you've put enough in the 401k and you want to, like, name your another savings account for a specific purpose. If you're going to go on that vacation, name it that. Say, this is Hawaii 2021, I'm putting money here, but keep doing your 401k. Don't blow up anything else to do that. One thing I see a lot of people doing is they sit on too much cash at their credit union or bank, earning 0.1%, which is next to nothing. Some of them are in checking, earning nothing. Rates have been going up a little bit, so there is some options online. If you use Wealthfront, that's a great one. There's a few others, but they're paying the highest that I know of. It's 1.78%. So 17 times what your bank is paying you is something. So I would consider making that change. Take that step, like put it on your calendar. Say, this Friday I'm going to take my lunch and I'm going to go and spend some time setting up my banking the correct way. And the reason I say automate, this is a big piece of this. If you're automating this and you're making sure your money's going to your 401k, you're saving money for your future and other things, you're paying your bills on time, your credit score is going to keep going up and doing well because you're not missing your bills. Your retirement plan is going to keep growing. You're going to have more confidence in what you can do and live the retirement you want. And overall, you're setting yourself up for success if you automate this process. So I always encourage participants to do that, because you could have a great 401k and then be terrible at all of those things and you're never going to get anywhere. It all comes together. It's all a big puzzle that has to work as one. So let's see if there's any questions. I went through that pretty quick. Is there any questions we have? Let me see if I can unmute anybody. If you have questions, you can throw them in the chat. Or I'll even do this. We'll skip over here. Our next webinar is going to be February 26th. So it's every Wednesday of it's the last Wednesday of every month. Here's my email address. And there's my cell phone. You can call or text me. Great, we've got a question. So how can I find a high-paying HSA? Great question. So let me talk a little bit about that, because your employer most likely has an HSA vendor that they want you to use. And I want you to fund it that way. Here's why. If you fund your HSA through payroll, you're going to save 7.65% on your FICA tax. So that's the Social Security and Medicare tax that comes out of your check. So you're already 7.65% ahead, plus the tax savings from your annual income. So do that, but then you can move it. You have the option, because it's an individual account. It's not like a 401k where it's a group account. You can move it, and two great options out there. Fidelity is actually doing a great job. They have a free HSA for you now. You can invest that money, as well as LivelyMe.com. So Lively HSA is another one that will allow you to invest your money for free using TD Ameritrade. And so I would encourage you to look at one of those two platforms to really put the additional cash that you have sitting in your HSA over in one of those, because you're not going to have any fees dragging on it, and you can invest in some low-cost Vanguard mutual funds. If for some reason, which we're in Utah, a lot of people use Health Equity, you can still use Vanguard funds there, but they do charge you 0.4%. So it's not a ton, but it can add up over the years. So it's definitely not the worst thing, but there's better out there. And yes, Barbara, I'll definitely I'll email that over to you, because I spent some time in the HSA world, so I'm very passionate about those, because they can be a significant win in retirement. So I'll get that out as a follow-up to everybody, actually. If you have other questions, though, I want you to be able to reach me. So this is my cell. If you call or text me, I will do my best to get back to you really, really fast. Email as well. We're really excited about these webinars, because next month we're going to dive into fees, and I think too many people have investments kind of all over the place and don't realize that the fees are a major drag. I had a couple people show me their accounts recently, and I was blown away at the high cost they had. And so we spent the last 2 years cleaning up our 401k plans that we help and manage, but that doesn't mean your spouse doesn't have a high expense 401k, or your parents or your kids. I want you to be able to read the things that are important. So one thing that you can do each year is your 401k will always have to send you a what's called a fee disclosure. And if you can get access to that, whether it's for you or if you want it for me, I can get it for you for your plan if I'm on your account. But if for a spouse or somebody, ask for that fee disclosure because it's going to tell you all the fees associated with it, and I can help you rip that apart and know, okay, this is what I'm stuck with. Here's the things that I should do with what I have, and then here's maybe some feedback from my HR team to hopefully get them on the right path if they're not. Even today, 40 years later, we're still seeing some very old legacy 401k plans that have high costs. So the more that we save you, the more you have in your account, and that's the goal. So hopefully that's helpful. I'll send these slides out to everyone so you can have them, as well as some HSA ideas too. And we'll get you the contact or the information for the next webinar, and appreciate you here today. If there's no other questions, I'll go ahead and just wrap it up, and have a great lunch, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Be safe out there. Thanks. Hey, everybody. Hey, we just had a question come in. This is a great one. If you're still here, if you have a 401k with a company that's closed, yes, it should be protected because once it's in the 401k, it's not company assets and they cannot keep it. So it's with a custodian somewhere. So it could possibly still be in the same account. If they've moved different vendors, we might have to hunt it down. But if that's the case, if you email me the name, we can do some hunting to see if we can find someone that's still involved with the plan. Unless it was totally shut down and terminated, then we might have to go to like the state and kind of dig up some different resources there for unclaimed property. But yes, it's once the money left your paycheck and the company money goes into your 401k, it's not, the company can't touch it again. It's illegal. So yeah, there is some good news there. We can hunt it down. It just might take a little bit of work, but we're happy to help.